Sergeant Eric Bailey.
Coach, good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to ask you, just when you go through the summer, just the responsibility of the guys to, on their own, study, memorize, try to get into a jump, to be prepared for fall camp. How much did you ask them to do that, and how much do you expect them to really be prepared mentally for what you guys are going to do this fall?
Well, there's NCAA rules that we have to follow as far as a certain amount of hours that we can require them to be here, but you never regret doing more than what's required. And our guys have spent a lot of time on their own this summer, and I think we've had a great summer. I think we're better defensively now than when we started the summer, but we should be. But some places aren't. So I've been real proud of the way that our guys have worked, and I think we've made some strides, and looking forward to getting started. But being player-led, that's a big deal. Coaches can do this and do that, but when your players take ownership and it becomes player-led, then you're moving in a really good direction.
Let's go to James Hale.
You know, Chad, you appear to have a real athletic group at linebacker. Could you talk about that group a little bit and how athletic it is? I know you had testing recently, and Whitter always seems to do pretty well in that testing.
Yeah, there's the thing that I like about that group is there's a lot of competition. There's competition for starting jobs. There's going to be competition for playing time. And anytime there's competition, that makes everybody better. So I like that. You're right, we are athletic. Got some guys that can run. And, but running in shorts is different than running with 40 pounds of gear on, trying to chase somebody who's pretty fast too. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm excited moving forward about and like what they've done this summer. I like the way they've worked. I like the way they've committed. They've spending the time learning what to do. And again, I think we're ahead. I know we're ahead of where we were when we stopped in the spring. It's where we are now.
Ted, you talk about being ahead now from where you were at the end of the spring. What are a couple areas where you feel like your guys have made progress, maybe outside of just the strength and conditioning aspect of things, and what do you most want to see over this first part of camp to make that next step?
Okay. Well, I see an improved football IQ, and you can tell that. You can tell the guys have been working because of that. As far as knowing assignments, understanding the defense, understanding where their help is, because playing team defense is a big deal as far as knowing where your help is and playing opposite your help. Where if you've got help outside, you want to make sure you stay inside leverage. Things like that, the details of that allow you to play fast and allow you not to have to think and process as opposed to react. And so in addition to that, learning offense too, meaning formation tendencies, motions, shifts, all the receiver splits, all those things that go into the pre-snap process, that the more you can understand that and recognize that, the faster you can play, because then you can anticipate. And I think that's what the really great players do. They anticipate. They play ahead of the play instead of behind the play, if that makes sense to you. Yeah.
Boppersville.
Yeah, Ted, going into spring, we were sort of wondering, David Agwebu, did he still fit this position? He let us know flat out, I'm still on Mike. So what is it about David? What traits does he have that makes him so good in that role?
He is such a relentless worker. He's changed his body. He's lost 20 pounds. He's moving a lot better. And you're talking about a guy that spends a lot of time working at his craft, and it's paid off. I'm really proud of him, and looking forward to watching him perform at camp.
John Hoover.
Ted, you guys have a whole spring behind you, obviously, and the off season. But for a new staff, I'm curious, what are some of your priorities for the early install in terms of just training camp, getting these guys ready to go and having them ready to go by September 1st?
Yeah, well, all summer long we've worked on game plans. So the installation to mirror what we're going to see, in the first several games. So we've got a big jump on that as a staff, and at the same time, going through things together as a staff. But we're on the same page, and we're moving forward. And I'm very fortunate to work with a group of guys that are team centered. There's some staffs out there where guys build kingdoms in their own little area, and our guys are all about the team. And I've enjoyed that, and looking forward to it.
Is there still a newness for the guys? In
Yeah.
terms of learning your language and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there is a newness. Yeah, every day gets a little bit better, but, certainly as you go through year one of most staffs, but you know what? You're always learning. If you're not learning, you're falling behind, whether it's year 36 or year 2. So, I mean, that part of it, we're trying to always learn every day. Yeah.
Cliff Brown.
Yeah, over here. Coach, so obviously you have a new staff. A lot of players are new as well, so they don't know each other. You just mentioned guys maybe not knowing where their help is coming from and so on and so forth. How do you, I don't know, create that kind of continuity, given the limits that you said that there were in terms of time?
Right. I think it just gets back to maximize your teaching. When you have meetings, to be prepared, to be organized, to be detailed, of knowing exactly what you want to get done. Because every defensive call has a strength, and every defensive call there's a stress point to it. And you want your guys to understand, okay, when this is called, they shouldn't be able to do this. But when this is called, hey, this is the stress point of it, so we've got to be able to protect the stress point and understanding all that, because if we're in bail coverage and they're throwing a 5-yard hitch, break up and tackle it. But hey, if we're loading the box, then they shouldn't be able to run the football. So understanding the stress point of every call and the strength of every call.
Let's go second row, Barry Trammell.
Yeah, Ted, you've been a lot of places, particularly Clemson, though. The talent you've found here, how does it compare to what you've seen in the past, particularly at Clemson? On the defensive side.
Yeah, I don't really want to compare talent. I just want to appreciate the talent we've got here. And we've got some talented guys, and I'm looking forward to coaching these guys. Certainly Clemson is extremely talented, well coached, great culture, but I'm at Oklahoma, and I want to focus on these guys.
Okay, front row, Eli Letterman.
I guess focusing on these guys, you've got C.J. Colton comes in after in the summer not being here in the spring. What are the things he's got to catch up on this month that maybe the guys in front of him have already?
Well, if you look at it right, whenever he got here was May or June, he was 4 or 5. Those other guys had 4 or 5 months in the system that he didn't have. So catching up to the language, catching up to scheme, the way that the requirements in the weight room under Coach Schmitty, how you have to perform there, the standards. But again, he's come in with a great attitude and has worked hard, and it is playing catch up a little bit. But I'm excited to see what he's going to do. Once we start camp, because he's an experienced player there as well. But again, he's going to get what he earns, as all our guys are. There's not going to be nothing handed to anybody, and there's competition at those spots too.
You mentioned his experience. What about his makeup? I mean, clearly there's a reason you guys wanted to bring him here, but what about him maybe makes you think he can catch up and be ready to contribute, whatever that looks like in September?
Well, he has good tape. He's been in situations in college stadiums against really good receivers, and so he has that level of experience, and that's something that you can't fabricate. You can't fabricate experience, and so to have that, and I think he's confident. And at the same time, I go back to, hey, just like every guy on our team's got to earn. He's gonna get whatever he earns, just like we all are. So that's the mantra, and getting him caught up, and the experience obviously is a factor that's on his side.
Okay, back to the second row, Justin Martinez.
Coach, you guys had a few off-season events. I think there was the trip out to Mahogany. You guys had some animals, snakes, and lemurs and stuff out here a few weeks ago.
Some
Just
what?
Lemurs and snakes. I think I saw out here on campus. You guys brought some animals out here. I mean, just can you kind of speak to these?
I didn't get involved with
Oh.
the Whoa,
Can you
yeah.
kind of speak to just some of these off-season things in terms of team chemistry and stuff? Just how close has this group gotten? And is there an event maybe you guys have had that was your favorite?
I think that getting to know one another, that is so critical for any organization, but especially a football team, because I think when you get to know one another and you watch each other specifically work, then you can respect a guy. And when you can respect a man, you can fight for that man. And but just to establish the brotherhood that goes into what the great teams have, and time away from activities like you brought up, away from football, but just getting together and spending time, whether it's grabbing a pizza or whatever, just getting to know each other. And because we all come from such different backgrounds and different places to try and blend to become one. And again, the deeper that you know each other, the tighter the bonds. So that's part of any great team, I think. And again, it gets back to knowing each other so you can respect each other.
Second row, Parker Thune.
Yeah, Coach, you've been several different places in your coaching career.
You're like the third guy that said that.
Your son's been a lot of places as well.
You're the first guy that said
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
four different teams entering his 6th season. So as you've watched him grow and mature as a coach as well as a dad, seeing where he is today, how much you entrust in him with a leadership role in that linebacker group?
Well, he has been a couple places, and I'm proud of how he's worked, just like I'm proud of how the other guys have worked. And at the end of the day, our job is to put the people that earned it on the field, and he's going to have to earn whatever his role is. And at the same time, because he's been around the block a time or two, as you mentioned, I get back to the same type of experience. And but this is a different experience because of the culture here. I'm like I am with all our players. What gets poured into him on a daily basis from Coach Venables and the rest of our staff, I'm really grateful for that. But again, he's going to get what he earns when we hit the field. He's number 18. That's the way it goes, But I'm pleased with him, and But again, he's in a battle and a competition, but that's going to help him. And it's going to help the other linebackers as well. So it's win-win. Yeah.
Okay, standing up in the back, Lee Benson.
Coach, you mentioned earlier that this summer you worked on installation, and I think you mentioned that some game planning for some of the early opponents. Curious, last year when you were working with Coach Venables, is that the same kind of situation you guys did last summer? Does he work ahead like that? Is that a kind of common practice?
Yeah, we did that last year as well at Clemson, and a lot of the staffs that I've been on, you do that because when you hit camp, there's some things that you're going to install because your bread and butter, your things that you're going to carry every week. But there's also some very game plan specific things that we want to get installed, and everything that we carry, right, isn't going to be good for what we're seeing on a daily basis against our offense. But at the same time, football is a game of repetition, and you want to build up those reps against certain concepts, certain types of plays, formations, whatever, as far as what we're doing defensively with our calls. So, and it's been my experience over the years that you don't want to just throw something that completely different that, you come up with this thing that in week 7, and well, wait a minute, what's, the players are, what's this? Because again, it gets back to the repetition. If you're doing something just a couple times, your players aren't going to be able to execute it at a high level. So to build up reps with what we're doing, yeah.
One quick follow-up. When you talk about game planning for opponents early on, how many games out do you go? I mean, is there a set number? I'm just kind of curious how that works.
Yes,
7?
Several.
Okay.
Several. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back, far right side, John Hoover.
You said you can't fabricate experience. When you look at TD's experience and you look at Deshaun's experience, does that help those guys with that newness that I was talking about?
Absolutely.
In terms of picking up little scraps of information, being able to relate them to the game or whatever?
Yeah, it does. When you get into those where guys have played, that many snaps over the course of their career, it certainly should. Just like you would expect it, at any position. Just like, in your business, if a guy was doing it for 5 or 6 years as opposed to a guy, coming straight out of college or whatever, you would expect the guy in your business to be 5 or 6 years to be ahead of the rookie. And at the same time, that doesn't mean the rookie can't grow and become great too. But the experience is something that I think if you look at across a lot of the teams that win championships, they're older. You got a lot of older guys playing. Not to say that talented freshmen can't walk in the door and earn a job or whatever, but guys that are battle tested and you like that.
Okay, 3 more, and then Coach Roof will be available on the side for a few more minutes. Let's go back to Eric Bailey.
Coach, I wanted to ask you, Miguel Chavis, he's been here 6, 7 months as a first-time position coach. How much have you appreciated the way he's attacked it, both on the field coaching and off the field recruiting?
Well, he's attacked it. You're exactly right, and I'm very appreciative of that. He's humble. He's a hard worker. He wants to learn, and he's very intelligent. He's played the game at a high level, and have been around it. It's at Clemson for a long time under Coach Venables. So very appreciative of that. But our entire staff is like that. A group of men men and women now that are hard workers, are committed, and humble, and at the same time, trying to get better every day, just like we ask our players to do, and we're no different.
Okay, James Hale.
Ted, you said earlier there's going to be great competition at your position. You have some older guys that have been in the program. You have some guys that are 1 year, but you have a great group of young linebackers too. Could you do a deep dive for us and tell us what you think talk about some of these guys that you have at the linebacker position, please?
Well, yeah, if you look at David Uwebu and Danny Stutzman, I mean, both of those guys have played football. Danny's obviously just a sophomore, and David's a fourth-year guy. But both been battle tested, and both of those guys had a great spring. And there's a lot of competition there. But it's a competition where there's respect. Those guys really care about one another, and I think appreciate what each other brings to the table, and have made each other better. But my job is to get the best group together on the field, whoever that is, in whatever role that is. So that's been a great competition. Deshaun and TD have had a great competition as well, and it's made both of them better. Because when you're competing, if you take a day off or a playoff, you're going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit, and because the other guy that you're competing against isn't. So that just raises everybody's level, which is a wonderful thing for our football team. And then you mentioned somebody. Did you mention Shane? Somebody did. Yeah, earlier you did. Yeah, I mean Shane's had a great off season as well too. So he's in the mix. Then behind that, we've got several freshmen, and they're way ahead because they got here in January. From the shock of going from. For some people, it's bigger than others. All right, the shock of going from high school football to college football, especially at a place like the University of Oklahoma, there's a leap there. Everything's faster. There's certainly in our program a high level of accountability, but just the newness. Like, hey, this is my dorm now. Okay, this is where I eat. This is where the weight room is. All right, I'm supposed to be here at 6, but that really means 5:50. I mean, all those things that kind of go into the newness of it from a practice standpoint. In some high schools, and every situation's different, but some high schools you may run 2 or 3 coverages, and here you may install 4 or 5 in a day. So I mean, and then be expected to master that. So I mean that part of it, there's a lot goes into that I don't think a lot of people understand. They just see the bright lights and see them running out of the tunnel with the smoke in front of 88 or 90,000, and they don't see all those things that that go into that. And because our guys are just guys. I mean, they're young men that go through the same thing do they have an awesome opportunity, and is it a privilege to be here? Absolutely. But there's still things that they go through on a daily basis, some anxiety, some angst, some first time, like we all have, that is part of the equation. But they are so much better by having come in mid-year, being where we are now, as opposed to, having if they would have come in June. And that's not to say the guys that came in June haven't had a great summer as well, because they have as well. And but it's a transition, and there's growth and learning that happens in those transitions. So, but yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to end it here. Coach Root will be available on the side for a few more minutes, as will the rest of our defensive coaches. Thank you, Coach.
Sure.